Hi, welcome back to Crafting Creativity. This is session 4, and as promised, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about colour. Now, there is a lot to say about colour, and I'll try and be brief because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There is a lot of information out there if you want to continue to explore. This is just like step 1, introduction to some colour basics, and then showing you a few examples of different ways that you can start bringing colour into your work, building on your drawing practice. Now, the absolute basics is colour theory. Most people already know what the basic colour theory is. The very, very first thing to know are the 3 primary colours, which are red, blue and yellow, and they are primaries because you can't mix them from any other colour. From those colours, you can create every other colour. There are variations to the rule, but that's the sort of basic understood rule. But I also want to talk to you about a few other things around that. I did a little bit of mixing to show you that there is a lot of variety because there's a lot of different types of blue. There's a lot of different types of red. There's a lot of different types of yellow. And of course, when you mix those different variations, you're going to get different colours as a result, a different type of green, a different type of orange. In this first section, I've got phthalo blue, I've got cadmium red, and I've got a mid yellow, and they're our primaries. So mixing them together, blue and yellow, I mix together to get this shade of green. The red and yellow, I mix together to get this orange. And then, of course, I've added white for some tone. But here's the thing. When we've mixed the blue and the red, we get this browny colour. And you might ask, well, why isn't it purple? And that's because in this particular shade of red, there's yellow. Yellow is already in there, and which means that we are essentially mixing all 3 colours together and we get brown. It's a purplish brown, but brown nonetheless. Now down here we've got 3 other types of red, blue and yellow. We have cerulean blue, warm red and cadmium. So when we mix it again, we get another type of green. It's different to this green. And we get another type of orange. It's different to this orange. But again, we get this browny purple. How do we combat that? And of course, there are going to be reds that will give you a better purple, depending on the type of blue you're mixing with. Instead of using red to mix your purple, I've used magenta. So magenta is like a pink, right? So it means it's got no yellow in it. And that way, when you mix it with your blue, you get this beautiful purple and violet. What I wanted to do today is use a few different types of materials to start showing you what they can do. I have drawn up the same landscape in several areas so I can show you what each thing does. If your goal is to travel around and draw things in your book and paint them up, a watercolour palette, something like this, is pretty good. It's pretty great for just painting in colour, selecting different colours for you to refer back to later. I use a lot of watercolour. If I'm just painting in, I'm just using them to block in colour. Now, of course, like every other material, watercolours come in trays, they come in tubes, they can be super cheap to very beautiful, fine quality watercolours, and there's a lot of different things you can do with it. It's a beautiful medium, and if you like it, I actually recommend, great to go ahead and do one of those online tutorials just to learn different techniques. Doesn't mean you just have to stick to doing that replica and that's all you know about it. No, you take information and you take ways of using the medium and then you use those in your own work. So it's great to do online tutorials for any medium that you're doing in order to start building skills. The watercolor tray usually has some kind of lid or palette with it that you can start mixing colors on. So you can pick up color from here, put it on here, mix it together, create new colors. It's fun. I'm going to start here. I'm not going to do whole pictures. I'm just going to be super quick with things so you can have an idea. So let's say we've got this landscape. I'm going to block in. If you were really getting into watercolor and you really like the lovely flow of watercolor and you wanted to really get into it, you can buy beautiful watercolor paper. You have to prep your paper, wetting it first, letting it stretch, stick it to a board to be ready for your painting. And then there's lots of techniques you can use. Now I'm just going to show you. So far, it doesn't look like much. I'm just blocking in some colors. You might want a little bit of color theory. Say you want some green, but the green in the palette might be really too much, too bright, not quite what you want. Use a little bit of the opposite color on the color wheel. So if I've got green there and it seems a little bit too bright, I might grab a touch of some red and pop it in with my green, and it will really mute it down, take away some of that really intense green. And again, I am just blocking in color here. Now, way off in the background, as you know, I don't know, maybe you know, maybe you don't. Things in the foreground have bigger contrast, whether it's like brighter colors, more light and dark, your eyes pick up those details easier close up. As you get further away with atmosphere and your eyes' inability to like gather all the information, things become more muted, the contrast is less, the colors are more subtle. This is not necessarily the correct brush. And like I said before, I don't really worry about conventions all that much. I probably should. I don't really care. I will need a really thin brush for my thin lines here though. So as you can see, it's incredibly easy painting in some colour with watercolour. I feel like it could use some dashes of red just because, you know, for some interest, and maybe some pink in the clouds. So there's my watercolour landscape. You could also use acrylic paint. How you would start, you would put out your colours. You could start to mix all the colours you see before you begin. I'm a bit too lazy for that. If I could absolutely get away with it, I use one type of brush for a whole painting. Let's just start with some of the bigger colours. I'll grab some yellow, I'll put it over here separate to keep my yellow clean. I'm going to mix separately. If you have a palette knife, even better. Now I can see that that green is way too bright. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick up some of that magenta. I'm going to add it in, not too much. We're just dulling it down. It's thicker, it doesn't run, which I think can be something that you might enjoy. You can control the colours a bit better. And I guess you can make sort of quick and easy decisions around that. If you're making sky and you want it super duper light, if you want it light blue, grab mainly white. You need just the smallest touch of blue. Otherwise, you end up with very, very, very bright blue. And I'm going to pop that in there. Add a bit of water so it can be pushed around a bit better. I'm just blocking in. I'm going to add some blue down here just for fun. I could probably go over it later, but it's nice to have it there. So I'm just blocking in colours at the moment. You can see that. I want to add some kind of orangey yellow colours. I'm just going to add those to the top. So you take your time, you're adding your details, and you can go ahead and work that out. Okay, so there's acrylics. I think I'd like to add that yellow, and I've already done what I said not to do, which is mix all my blue in with my yellow. But I want another muted green, maybe slightly more yellow than the green I already had. Let's get some Payne's Grey. We're going to add it to the green to create a nice dark green. Payne's Grey is very bluish grey, which I like. As you can see, at this point, they look very different. Very, very different, okay? We've got more saturation of colour in this one. But other things you can try, especially if you are travelling around, watercolour pencils are fabulous. I will probably just do some grass, and I'm going to do this as fast as I can, okay? You can blend the colours. So you do one colour, and then if I want areas that are a bit browner, maybe a bit further off into the distance, we have more brown in our green, maybe on this trail. So just sort of colouring it in lightly at the moment. Let's chuck some blue in the sky. Upside, you only need some water, some brushes and the pencils. So as I add the water, you'll notice that the different colours I've added on start to blend on the page, which is exactly what we want. And I can add in over the top there, add in my sky. Now what I can do to add some difference, I've got this little trees in the background. Can use a multitude of colours maybe. And you can draw in things after the fact. What I want, that's what I want. Some brown, bringing those pigs. Okay. Watercolour pencils, a lot more subtle, and kind of a bit more control if that's what you need or want. And you can draw in afterwards if you wanted to add extra details, okay? Other things you can do, you can try just plain old textures. You can try things like soft pastels. Soft pastels and oil pastels, both incredibly difficult for detailed work, great for big work, in my opinion. The last thing I wanted to say is oil colours. Now, I've just used a very cheap palette of oil colours for this. You will need, apparently turpentine is on the way out. That's for cleaning your brushes, and I used to always use it for like trying to thin things down. Linseed oil you would definitely need, okay? You will need some rags. Painting straight into your book wouldn't be a great idea because it takes so long to dry. So I've painted one on a piece of thick paper. I primed it first, which means I painted with acrylic paint. I think I used the Payne's Grey as a background, which is why it's sort of so dark, and then painted over the top. That's going to go there, and I'm going to add in the rest of my colours. So let's say you're using texture, and of course you can just colour things in as you see fit. There's more control. Just like when we were experimenting a little bit with line, if you wanted to use water on your page after to see if things kind of blend, that's a good idea. If you can see it, I'm just scuffling it in. So I'm going to chuck those in. I'm going to see how well it blends on my page. So that's how I've just scribbled it in. I'm going to grab some water. Maybe I can blend it. Oh, it's decided it doesn't want to blend. There are some textures that will blend, some will not. Okay, no blending. Gone rogue. I went completely rogue. You can see they're all incredibly different. Last thing I'm going to put here, let's try a little bit of chalk pastels. This is definitely more uncontrolled. You can smudge, and that's kind of fun. Let's grab some green, bring it in here, smudge it in, maybe some blending. What's a good colour for these? Trees in the background. So you just explore. You're exploring different mediums. Just see what things do. Here's an example, a very rushed example of different ways you can use colour. Don't close it, Tracy. Okay. Different things give you different results. So just explore and enjoy. See you later.